CIUT 89.5 FM, Toronto.
Pay it back, pay it forward, pay it today. Borrowing money just to give it away. Where the lifestyles of the rich and famous have left us behind.
Welcome, welcome. My name is Riley Mormon, and you are listening to CIUT 89.5 FM. That was their own Sugar Brown, or Ken Kawashima, a professor at the University of Toronto and an excellent blues musician. That was Lousy Dime. And today, before we get started in our multi-part series on the history of important revolutions, I think it's important just to take a little moment to analyze revolution in Canada and what that would mean for us right now. So stay tuned for that, and we'll get back to that after the end of the song.
Everybody's scrambling for the same lousy dime. Everybody's scrambling for the same lousy dime. Robot surplus rusting in the sun. Recycled at the garbage dump for a profit run. Robbing a bank should not be considered a crime. 'Cause everybody's scrambling for the same lousy dime. Everybody's scrambling for the same lousy dime. Well, all the fools in the middle of sticking with wanna change, can't exchange, is killing our health. Hard to say anymore was truly a crime. Everybody's scrambling for the same lousy dime. Disappearing ammo, lock 'em up in their cup. The bankers and police do their pantomime. Everybody's scrambling for the same lousy dime. Bonafide Incorporated, ready to kill. The Ponzi's wash their hand while the oil men drill. The billionaires got bailed out, they got the fruit, we got the rind. And everybody's scrambling for the same lousy dime. 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 Everybody's scrambling for the same lousy dime.
That was U of T's very own Sugar Brown with Lousy Dime. You should check out the rest of his music and that album because it is absolutely wonderful. I'm Riley Mormon, and you're listening to Student Revolutions in History. Good morning. I got some feedback recently, and I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who's contributed to this show or sent feedback or encouragement on the show. It's absolutely wonderful to hear. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that this isn't a class, and it's not a poorly taught class for sure. If you have a question, you don't need to raise your hand. Call in, email in. I'll try to answer every single question that I get. Any music break you hear in the show, if you call the station, I'll be here at the phone and we can talk. I absolutely love it when the audience is engaged. And if you're just confused by anything I said, call in, I'll clarify it for you. If you email, I'll answer every single email I get. Today's topic is revolution in Canada, what that means for us right now, and a little bit of the history of revolution. Canada, famously, is a very conservative country. We just celebrated a civic holiday in Ontario, which was Simcoe Day. As a non-native Ontarian, I did not learn that until the next day because everyone was too afraid to say the word, didn't want to say the word, I'm not sure. But it was a day celebrating our Lord and Savior, Mr. Simcoe, who very bravely fought for slavery in Haiti and would later lead the abolition of slavery in Canada, which is absolutely wonderful and absolutely not something that he really had influence on. So I'm not entirely sure why we're celebrating him, but that might be my lack of Western historicalism. And I just wanted to get a little bit of a deep dive into Canadian Revolution, very famously the Canadian Revolution of 1838, and more broadly, we'll be speaking about the issues that we're facing contemporary Canadian society, North American society as a whole, and how we can address those effectively. Before we get on to that, and now that you know what this episode is about, we're going to listen to Michael Franti and Spearhead, one of my absolute favorite artists, and one you'll be hearing a lot if you like to listen to this show. Bomb the World, and it's an absolutely wonderful artist. I only like to play songs that I like because I'm not some kind of masochist who will listen to music I don't like on live radio. So we're going to listen to that, and then we'll be right back.
Please tell me the reason behind the colors that you fly. Love just one nation, and the whole world we divide. You say you're sorry, there is no other choice. God bless the people now who cannot raise their voice. We can chase down all our enemies, bring them to their knees. We can bomb the world to pieces, but we can't bomb it into peace. Whoa, we may even find a solution to hunger and disease. We can bomb the world to pieces, but we can't bomb it into peace. Violence brings one thing, more of the same. Military madness, smell of flesh and burning pain. So I sing out to the masses, stand up if you're still sane. To all of us gone crazy, I sing this one refrain. We can chase down all our enemies, bring them to their knees. We can bomb the world to pieces, but we can't bomb it into peace. Whoa, we may even find a solution to hunger and disease. We Love to the peaceful, y'all. I sing power to the peaceful. Love to the peaceful, y'all. We may even find a solution to hunger and disease. We can bomb the world to pieces, but we can't bomb it into peace. Say we can chase down all our enemies. We can even bring them to their knees. We can bomb the world into pieces, but we can't bomb it into peace. And I sing power to the peaceful. Love to the peaceful, yo. I sing power to the peaceful. Love to the peaceful, I sing.
Welcome back. That was Bomb the World, and I gotta say, I really, really love the message in that song. I think, despite everything, if you cannot love something in your enemy and you cannot recognize the inherent dignity of every single human, you probably need to take a step back and reevaluate your life, because there's something going on, and I don't know what it is. I'm not a therapist, but I think we should all take a little bit of time to just respect each other and respect each other's ideas. We're talking about the Canadian revolutions today, most famously in 1837 and 1838, as a broader part of the Atlantic revolutions of the 1830s. You may know it from Les Miserables, which was about the French Revolution of 1838, and famously not about the French Revolution of the 1790s, which is often confused, but that's okay, because they had a very, very similar message, and France is a country in which keeping revolution straight is nigh impossible. The Canadian revolutions were fought by William Lyon Mackenzie, known as the Patriots, the Republic of Lower Canada, and the Hunters Lodge of Upper Canada, which is in now Quebec. They fought to establish democratic, responsible government, and famously, William Lyon Mackenzie was a Republican, but the vast majority of his followers were interested solely in the goals of democratic representation, the breaking of aristocracy in Canada, and the empowerment of self-government. Unfortunately, this revolution was absolutely brutally demolished by the British forces in North America, scared from their recent experiences with the American Revolt and the 1812 War. I'm calling it the American Revolt for a very specific reason, and we'll get into that in a future episode, but you'll learn my opinions on the American Revolution and maybe why it should not be called a revolution. But there was a young generation of Canadians who, for the first time, had been born in Canada, as it was known. They weren't frontiersmen, like in New France. They were born in cities of Canada, both in Quebec and Ontario, and they were inspired by the ideas of republicanism, democracy, and self-government. They decided to take it upon themselves after they were forced out of a corrupt system in which the 1836 legislative elections were just completely and utterly rigged in favor of the landed aristocracy. And I may be sounding a bit revolutionary in this tone, but this is kind of just straight up what happened. There was essentially a concerted effort by newly arrived Brits and landed aristocracy in Ontario to crush any mention of the Republic or of revolution. And we can still find traces of this even today. Canada is a very, very conservative country. Some of you might be thinking, but we're so liberal. We love gay rights and there's minorities everywhere. That's not what I mean by conservative. I mean, in the most literal definition of, we really like to preserve the systems that exist and like to keep not necessarily our history, but our institutions and the people who've made those institutions intact. We don't like to examine our own history very much, and if we did, we might have an easier track on truth and reconciliation, which is a very complicated topic, and unfortunately, it seems like a lot of Canada isn't really willing to put in any effort into understanding the problems of Indigenous peoples in this land, and even the naming of something as simple as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission assumes that every finding it will have will be the truth, and that every recommendation it makes will be for reconciliation. It states the goals, but it presupposes that those goals will happen with that commission, and not at the process of a very, very lengthy and long process of understanding, acceptance, and reconciliation. There's been a tendency, unfortunately, in a lot of Canada that has been propagated by systems that emphasize our loyalty to the UK, even though we don't have a British government anymore. Our school system, our law system, everything about our systems is dominated by an understanding and a love of the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, they don't rule us anymore, and if you actually take a look and go behind what these systems were about, the UK put up a very, very deliberate policy of only allowing their most loyal citizens, or their citizens who were at the very bottom of the social rungs. We're talking home children, that kind of thing, were allowed into Canada because it was thought that they wouldn't rebel in Canada. They didn't want to face the same experience they did in the American Revolution, in which upper middle class aristocracy, almost, some of them were burghers, which is a type of merchant. And if you're confused by any of my wording at any point, email or call me. I'm happy to explain more. But they didn't want the same kind of people entering Canada as entered the States. They didn't want entrepreneurial people who were willing to break treaties with natives in order to get more land, which I guess is a kind of entrepreneurism, but certainly not a good kind in modern reckonings. They wanted people who are loyal to the Commonwealth, people who wouldn't raise a stink, and people who were either actively benefiting from a colonial system or so swept to the side by that colonial system that they had no power to change it. And very unfortunately, we are still living with a lot of these problems. This is, I think, Canada's fundamental difference with the United States, is this legacy of those institutions. And I think those institutions are what has determined a lot of our national character, be it from our myth of us being a two-country state, as in the English and the French working harmoniously, and ignoring the domestic terrorism and the pogroms and all the racial infighting that happened, and also ignoring the massive Indigenous populations who worked very hard in order to get this country to be where it was, or any immigrants after the English or French who made this country succeed. And I think people are very uncomfortable with the idea that the way they've been taught and the way they've viewed Canadian society is fundamentally wrong, or if not fundamentally wrong, at least very influenced by the perceptions of people who have been dead for at least 100 years. People are uncomfortable with change, and that's very, very valid. But if you're uncomfortable with change to the point where you can't see another person and accept that they're not arguing for the sake of arguing, they're arguing so that they can have a better life, and so that the inherent dignity of all Canadians and all people can be respected, that's a problem. If you think, and unfortunately, a lot of people I've met and a lot of people I've seen do, that we shouldn't be respecting those who are not at the top of the ladder, but at the bottom in any situation, then I'm very sorry for you. I don't know what happened in your life to cause that, but there's just so much love to go around, and unfortunately, there is this tendency to view life as a zero-sum game. If I'm doing well, it means somebody else is losing, and if somebody else is winning, it means I'm doing poorly. Life doesn't work this way. Life works better when we cooperate. If you see anything that's ever successfully been achieved, it was built not through competition, but through cooperation with other people. There isn't a finite amount of resources or of land, or as unfortunately as recently, of housing to go around. We can make as much to fit as many people. We could probably fit the entire population of the Earth inside Canada and not have it be as crowded as some places on Earth are right now. But for people who are benefiting from the status quo, even if they don't know it, that kind of change makes them incredibly uncomfortable. And that kind of change has an initial backstep from them. And unfortunately, unless they're a very emotional and empathetic person, a lot of the time, they're not really willing to listen to arguments about that kind of change. I would also like to thank our caller who called me during our music break, gave some support. I absolutely love it when people call, and I just want to share some wise words he said, which is to celebrate bliss and the power of the people, because that is absolutely what we need to do. And we have a long way to get there. We're certainly making progress. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of problems in today's Canadian society, some of which we'll be getting to shortly. But we still have a lot of problems in our world. And pretending we don't, or pretending that some emotional response, some moral panic to these problems is going to solve the solution, is going to be the solution or solve the problem, isn't going to work. It doesn't make anyone have a better quality of life when people get in a moral panic over, I don't know, immigration or homelessness or land fights with Indigenous people. I understand that rage and jealousy and these kind of emotions, which I've felt in my life, they come from insecurity. And I think because Canada has such a small identity, we really don't know what this country is made for. We don't have a clear identity set up by a constitution. Our history is very muddled compared to a lot of countries. It's comprised of rebellions, but also was founded by loyalists and works as peacekeepers around the world, but promotes genocide in our own country. We're a multicultural nation which had segregated train cars in a lot of the country up until the 1990s, which is absolutely horrible. And if you didn't know that, there's a fun fact for you. We had segregated train cars in a lot of this country where there would be a Indigenous car and a non-Indigenous car. I'm not going to say the real word, because I don't like repeating slurs on the radio, but I'm sure you can guess what it is. And that kind of thing was not something that was in the 1960s. This was not killing all the buffalo all those years ago. Why don't they just get over it? This was in the 1990s. People 30 years old experienced this. This is something that is incredibly recent and incredibly ongoing. And assuming that someone else should get over something in some amount of time is an absolutely horrible, horrible way to do reconciliation. Assuming that they're willing to get over something based on you not experiencing that thing and guessing about how long trauma takes to get over is an absolutely terrible and truly a thoughtless way to try to reconcile and try to understand our society. We're going to be playing some Gil Scott-Heron, an excellent artist, up next. And he's going to be playing Work for Peace because, unfortunately, we have this view that because Canada's not engaged in many active wars anymore, well, we're still engaged in a few, but because we don't have full armed conflict with Germany or the Japanese or something like that, that we are at peace. And I'm sure Gil has a few words on that.
Back when Eisenhower was the president, golf courses is where most of his time was spent. So I never really listened to what the president said because in general I believed that the general was politically dead. But he always seemed to know when the muscles were about to be flexed, because I remember him saying something, mumbling something about a military-industrial complex. Americans no longer fight to keep their shores safe, just to keep the jobs going in the arms-making workplace. And then they pretend to be gripped by some sort of political reflex. But all they're doing is paying dues to the military-industrial complex. Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. The military and the monetary get together whenever they think it's necessary. They turn our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning the planet to a cemetery. The military and the monetary use the media as intermediaries. They are determined to keep the citizens secondary. They make so many decisions that are arbitrary. We're marching behind the commander-in-chief who was standing under a spotlight shaking like a leaf. But the ship of state had landed on an economic reef, so we knew he was going to bring us messages of grief. The military and the monetary were shielded by January and went storming into February. Brought us pot-bellied generals as luminaries. 2 weeks ago I hadn't heard the sumbitch, now all of a sudden he's legendary. They took the honor from the honorary, they took the dignity from the dignitaries, they took the secrets from the secretary, but they left the bitch an obituary. The military and the monetary from thousands of miles away in a Saudi Arabian sanctuary had us all scrambling for our dictionaries because we couldn't understand the fucking vocabulary. Yeah, there was some smart bombs, but there were some dumb ones as well. Scared the hell out of CNN in that Baghdad hotel. The military and the monetary, they get together whenever they think it's necessary. War in the desert sometimes sure is scary, but they beamed out the war to all their subsidiaries, tried to make so damn insane a worthy adversary, keeping the citizens secondary, scaring old folks into coronaries. The military and the monetary from thousands of miles in a Saudi Arabian sanctuary kept us all wondering if all of this was really, truly necessary. We've got to work for peace. Peace ain't coming this way. If we only work for peace, if everyone believed in peace the way they say they do, we'd have peace. The only thing wrong with peace is that you can't make no money from it. The military and the monetary, they get together whenever they think it's necessary. They've turned our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning the planet into a cemetery. We've got to work for peace. Peace ain't coming this way. We should not allow ourselves to be misled by talk of entering a time of peace. Peace is not the absence of war, it is the absence of the rumors of war and the threats of war and the preparation for war. Peace is not the absence of war, it is a time when we will all bring ourselves closer to each other, closer to building a structure that is unique within ourselves because we have finally come to peace within ourselves. Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. Get together whenever they think it's necessary. They have turned our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning parts of the planet into a cemetery. What you gonna do? Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. Say what you gonna do? We hounded the Ayatollah religiously, bombed Libya and killed Gaddafi's son hideously. We turned our back on our allies, the Panamanians, and saw Ali North selling guns to the Iranians. Watched Gorbachev slaughtering the Lithuanians. We better warn the Amish, they may bomb the Pennsylvanians. The military and the monetary get together whenever they think it's necessary. They have turned our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning the planet into a cemetery. They got folks out there working for war. 2, 3, 4. Make a whole lot of money, start a little trouble, it's a war. Turn this planet in the north and south, it's a war. Start a few rumors over there, make money with a war. Peace. Say it to yourself. I believe we got to work for peace. Peace ain't gonna be free, you gotta work for peace. You believe in peace, gotta go to work. They got folks out there working for war. Start a little trouble over here, what you got is a war. Turn these folks in the north and south, it's a war. Start a little trouble over here, what you got is a war. Tell everybody you know, we gotta work for peace. Gotta work, gotta work. You believe in peace, time to go to work. I don't want to sound like no late night commercial, but it's a matter of fact that there are thousands of children all over the world, in Asia and Africa and in South America, who need our help. When they start talking about 55 cents a day and 70 cents a day, I know a lot of folks feel as though that's not really any kind of contribution to make, but we have to give up $1.50 just to get in the subway nowadays. So this is a song about tomorrow and about how tomorrow can be better if we all, each one reach one, each one try to teach one. Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Everyone must play a part. Everyone got to go to work. Work for peace. Spirit say work. Work for peace. You believe in peace, say go to work. You believe in peace, time to go to work. Can't be waving your hand no more, go to work. Everything you ever really wanted, had to go to work.
That was Work for Peace by Gil Scott Heron. Absolutely wonderful song. And we're back. And I just wanted to talk about some of the contemporary issues. We've talked a little bit about the historical context of Canadian revolutions, most famously in the 1837 case. We've talked a little bit about how those institutions perpetuate themselves to the modern day and how Canadian national identity is both confused but also founded on a fundamental ideal of a loyal class of either rich aristocrats who can preserve the status quo and people poor enough or uneducated enough to be okay with that. Any system that is so inflexible that instead of changing to meet the needs of its population, forces the population to change or to not have their needs met is in need of a revolution. This is a famous saying, and I fundamentally agree with it. The system we live in now is falling apart at the seams. Unfortunately, we're witnessing climate change come into full fruition, something that we have known or theorized about since the early 1900s, and something we have definitively known and had computational models of since the 1950s. If you work in the oil industry, you can thank Shell, ExxonMobil, and Petrocan for canceling their climate modeling programs and then spending the next 50 years denying climate change. This is one example of the way our current system is failing. It cannot change to meet the needs of the very climate of the earth. It can't change to meet the needs of its population, or else the housing crisis wouldn't exist. There wouldn't be a rampant homelessness issue. And to be clear, homelessness is the issue, not homeless people. Unfortunately, people who've grown up in suburbia and don't have experience living in downtown area centers tend to have a very, very narrow view of homelessness. And it's that those people either want to be out on the street, deserve to be out on the street, or that they should be pitied. And unfortunately, none of those are helpful solutions to any problems. They are regular people, and if they deserve to be out on the street, then anytime there was an economic downturn, there wouldn't be an increase in homelessness, because all the people who deserve to be out on the street would already have been out on the street. And besides the fact that nobody deserves to not have shelter, it is a fundamental human right, along with food, water, housing, and education, which unfortunately is also something that we're forgetting. There's been a lot of talk, and you've probably seen it in some form or another. You might not have consciously recognized it, but a lot of status quo solutions to homelessness are based around the idea that if you are poor enough, if you are low enough in society, you should give up all of your dignity in order to advance back into society. People, if asked about homelessness, will comment on, oh, I saw, like, oh, I don't know, those are some pretty nice tents they got over there, or them having nice food, or them having substance abuse issues. Obviously, this is not every houseless person, and I'm not trying to say that by any means. I'm saying the stereotype perpetuated by people who don't have exposure to homelessness on a regular basis, and usually who don't have the fear of homelessness because they don't have many of the same problems that those other people were facing. And there's this almost, it's not quite jealousy, but it's a terrible, terrible emotion of, oh, okay, but they're doing pretty well. If they were really struggling, they would be begging for work. And for some reason, it's become a very common thing in our society to say that if someone is at that point of struggling, they should be willing to give up all of their inherent dignity as a person. They should have no self-worth. If they have, I don't know, friends in one spot, no, they should be willing to move to any other spot in the country in order to have a home. If they have mental health supports, or, I don't know, support circles, or a job in one area, they should be willing to pack up their lives, move somewhere else to meet the demands of the system, instead of changing the system to meet their demands. Instead of efficiency in our society, we should strive for sustainability and resiliency. An efficient system doesn't help anybody except for those who stand to make money, taking little bits in between each step of the process for themselves. A sustainable economy and resilient communities help every member of society, not just those who have gotten in on the ground floor of taking profits away from, I don't know, farmers or food that everyone needs and raising grocery bills. I'm looking at you, Loblaws. If all of a sudden everyone in a city decided to grow a garden and to grow some of their own food, not all of their own food, some of their own food, it would massively cut down on grocery bills. But if you were looking at it at a mainstream economist and a governmental and news organizational point of view, it would look like that city had a massive economic downturn because all the grocery stores are failing. All those people need to be laid off. Even though everyone, by saving money on groceries, is wealthier than a very segregationist, and I mean that in the economic term of highly vertically integrated industries without horizontal integration at all, even though everyone would be wealthier, it would look like their economy is doing worse, and the government would respond as if their economy is doing worse. Speaking of which, government responses to economies doing worse. If you are an economist or you work in news reporting, I please urge you to take a critical look at how you talk about the economy before you publish it. Because unfortunately, when economists and when people of influence say things, even if it's incorrect, it has a tendency to self-perpetuate whatever they say. Economists can't be wrong, even though it is a fake field that is not a real science, and they should stop pretending it. I'm in university. I have friends who are economists. It's not real, and it is, instead of being taught about the actual science of economics, that is to say, the human study of different economic systems throughout history and across the world, they are taught one very specific 20th century version of neoliberalism in which the only government measures that can be taken to solve the economy are through interest rates and through printing of money. Inflation is the be-all, end-all, and corporate profits are the sign of a growing economy, even if people are starving on the streets. If you publish something that says a recession is inbound, which they have done, and if you look at any media outlet and search just the word recession over the last 24 months, you will see every single month there has been a prediction that there's an oncoming recession immediately. Just by saying that there's going to be a recession, it increases our likelihood of having a recession. The problem is that a lot of the way we think about these kind of issues is ingrained in us, and it's that individual issues should be solved by individuals, and that systemic solutions are not they're not replacements for individual issues, because if obesity is an issue, those people should just get off the couch and go for a run. But systemic solutions aren't a replacement for individual issues. They enable individuals to solve those issues. They enable individual solutions. If a systemic solution didn't work, then there wouldn't be increases or decreases in the rates of obesities based on countries and policies. It would just be based on, I'm not sure what the Andrew Tate heads out there think, but their mindset. Unfortunately, a lot of conservative people, I don't mean political parties, I mean people who've only seen this status quo for their entire life, think that if they solved an individual issue by themselves, everyone has that capability. Not realizing that they only solve those personal issues because the systems framework we have now enabled them and encouraged them to. They didn't have to worry about the problems the system created for other people because they never even saw them. If you think, the system worked just fine for me and my friends, I was able to lose this weight, I don't know why anyone else was, or I was able to pull myself up by my bootstraps, which is an ironic saying and horrible that we've forgotten that, because it is physically impossible to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If you think the system worked fine for me and my friends, that's because it's designed to benefit you and your friends. Do you personally know anyone who hasn't been benefited by the system? Do you know any homeless people or people on food stamps, which is not what it's called in Canada, but that's a very popular term, so I'm just going to say it. If you are not in close proximity and close relationship to people on different sides of the economic spectrum, in the economic field, you literally cannot understand the problems they face. Instead of assuming that the system works for everyone because it worked for you and the people around you, maybe there's a common denominator among your friends, like you. That's why we need solutions that are based on data and not emotion. We don't need the Rob Fords of the world streaming about streetcars and how they're going to clog up traffic, or another expansion of highways, or I don't know, a $9 billion corruption scandal that just broke recently. if you look at data-based solutions instead of emotional-based solutions or just blatantly corrupt solutions, those have the power to change not just your own lives, but people who you don't know's lives, because you don't know their issues. You don't know what parts of life they're struggling with. You will not hear those problems through word of mouth because subconsciously or consciously, you don't hang around those people. You don't listen to their problems. Unfortunately, empathy is something that needs practice. The practice of putting yourself in someone else's shoes is something that you need to do regularly to get good at it. It's a use it or lose it skill. Like every single trait in humanity, if you don't use it regularly, you will lose it. You actually cannot emotionally comprehend how other people work. And unfortunately, a lot of people think that because they face struggles at one point in their life, they know exactly how it's like for everyone in the world, even everyone in their community. But if you really want to understand other people, you have to listen to them, not speak over them, not announce their issues for them. Just sit and listen to them. Instead of offering individual solutions of how one person can lose weight or one person can solve tuberculosis in the north, because yeah, that's a real issue. That's something that's still going on. Tuberculosis, you know, the thing in the 1800s that they always warned us about. Oh, you better wash your hands or you're going to get TB. That is still a real thing in Canada. Have you ever met anyone with tuberculosis? If you haven't, you probably are choosing not to hang around people who could get tuberculosis. Instead of offering individual solutions of how one person can advance, instead of offering solutions of how one person can work within this incredibly unfair system of, oh, they should move to a smaller town, or they should do this for a job because that's an underrepresented niche in the job market right now, and they can make lots of money to afford a $2 million home in Ontario. Instead of offering individual solutions, just ask, why are they in that situation? And listen to them. Usually with no consideration or possibility of problems other than the main one being discussed, which was a confusingly worded sentence on my part, but by that I mean that there is only ever one issue discussed. If we talk about more than one issue at a time, it's, oh, we have bigger issues. We have housing crisis to deal with. We have all these things. This is my stock conservative middle-aged man voice, I guess. But there's only ever one issue that's focused on at a time, instead of considering that these things might have more than one component to them. Homelessness might have an, I don't know, gender factor or a race factor or a health factor. People who are homeless are significantly more likely to have head injuries for obvious reasons, because that makes your life much harder. But if you are homeless to start out with, you are much more likely to get traumatic head injuries. It's a self-fulfilling cycle. Once you're in one spot, it's very hard to get out of that spot and turn your life around. And instead of expecting everyone to follow in your footsteps, which they cannot do because they live a different life than you, if we can respect the inherent dignity of each person, listen to their problems, and offer solutions that work for everyone and benefit every person, we can actually try to solve issues instead of just letting them flounder and fester and grow so large that they become physically impossible to deal with. That was a very long set of words, so I'm going to go to some music. Thank you very much for listening. As always, again, if you want to contact me, feel free to phone, feel free to email. Should have a CIUT email, which is where you're listening, by the way, CIUT 89.5 FM, up soon, in which you can talk to me. I appreciate everyone's support with this. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to be listening to one of my favorite songs. I hope you enjoy it.
close to Mandeville. Back up in the woods on top of a hill, there stood an old hut made of earth and wood. There lived a country boy named Johnny B. Good, who never learned to read and to write so well, but he could play his guitar like a ringing a bell, yeah. And said, go, Johnny, be good tonight, yeah. And said, go, Johnny, be good. He used to carry his guitar in the gunny sack, sitting in a tree in the railroad track, yeah. Old engineer in the train, sitting in the shade, strumming with the rhythm that the drivers made. People passing by would stop and say, oh my, how what the boy can play. I said, oh, Johnny, be good tonight, yeah. Said, oh, Johnny, be good. Mama said, son, you gotta be a man. You got to be the leader of a reggae band. People coming in from miles around to hear you play until the sun goes down. Boy, someday your name will be in the light, saying, Johnny, Johnny, be good tonight. I say, go, Johnny, be good tonight, yeah. Said, oh, Johnny, you better be good. I said, go, Johnny, be good tonight. Play, Johnny, Johnny, be good. I said, go, Johnny, be good tonight. You can hear him play, Johnny, better be good.
This is Riley. You're listening to Student Revolutions. For everyone wondering, we will be here every Monday morning at 9 to 10 a.m. I've done some wonderful phone calls during the break, and I'm absolutely so glad to hear them. And it's really nice to hear people's issues. Even if they are sad issues, it's nice to hear people express them, and it's nice to find this kind of solidarity in the community. Toronto has unfortunately had a lot of issues recently, and this is a community radio, and there's been obviously lots of housing issues, lots of just every kind of issue. But the people I've met here have all been so wonderful and so helpful. And I just want to remind everyone that although we need a revolution, you can improve the lives of yourself and people around you without a revolution. In the meantime, you can still improve the world through art, through music, through community, and through kindness. You can improve the world, and I just want everyone to remember that, because sometimes it's really easy to get lost in the crowd of everything that's going on. makes us feel like we can't do anything about it. Makes us feel like there's maybe no end to the cycle of working, paying rent, not having quite enough money for the things you want to do. Working, paying rent, that thing. The only break from it and the only solidarity you'll find is in your community. So I just want to encourage everyone to reach out to those people, to find something that's meaningful to them, and to advocate for large-scale change while implementing small-scale change on your own. Lots of people have jobs that they find meaningless in this world, and I found a way that I can find meaning is through this show and through helping the people around me. You don't have to be everyone's therapist. You don't have to put yourself on unnecessary strain to help those around you. But it doesn't mean you can't listen to people, point them in the right direction. You don't have to run the clinic in order to help somebody get there. I'm so proud of this community, and it is so incredible to hear the work that everyone's doing in order to help each other and to keep everyone keep on keeping on. We're going to close out now with I Got Plenty of Nothing, like so many of us have, but Nothing is Plenty for Me by Spearhead and Ernest Ranglin. Take care. I'll be here next week if you'll be here next week. Why don't we hang out?
Lot of mercy. Lot of mercy.
Ernie Ranglin on this track right here. Jamaica's fine.
Lot of mercy. Lot of mercy.
Got plenty of nothing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ain't nothing ain't plenty for me.
Lot of mercy.
Got plenty of nothing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ain't nothing ain't plenty for me.
Lot of mercy.
Open up my wallet, look, you see what's inside. A dead phone card and no token for no ride. An old ID card that gon' pass expiration. That got a rhythm just to give me inspiration. I repeat, a rhythm just to give me inspiration. Cause without the groove, my life would be in desperation. When you're flat broke, you can't afford. No hesitation, no reservation, no even constipation. Folks with plenty loot got burger alarms on the door. Afraid I'm gonna rob them while they out there making more. I ain't got no locks upon my door. If you get past my dog, you could steal my whole floor. I got plenty of nothing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ain't nothing ain't plenty for me.
Lot of mercy.
I got plenty of nothing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ain't nothing ain't plenty for me. I come back on the track, so versatile, like smack on the wax. Make a junkie smile, ease up, relax, loosen up your ties, straight with the facts. Black militia style the other day, around the way, I saw a friend of mine who's feeling kinda down about the things people say. The backstabbers, loot grabbers, chasing him like paparazzi with their zoom in cameras. Yo, I seen, what's the matter with your scene? I see you walking around like you're at the wrong team. Nah, it ain't that, I'm just high from the scene. Life's a strong cup of coffee when you got no cream. Thank God I got my honey just to make things sweet. I repeat, my honey just to make things sweet. She gives me mad loving, a rubber dubbing. Because the best thing to comfort a man is a woman. I got plenty of nothing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ain't nothing ain't plenty for me.
Lot of mercy.